There's a question that I've been pondering lately that maybe you might be able to help me with. Mm-hmm. It's kind of similar to a lot of my questions. Who do you think would win in a fight? Mm-hmm. Sharks that are 47 meters down in the water, or vultures that are 2,000 feet up in the air?
Do they have to stay at that elevation?
Yes.
Well,
it's part of the movie. Sorry.
I'm not sure who would win. I think sharks might live longer if the birds can't land.
Oh, no. It's a real battle of attrition.
So if they're going to outlast them, then I guess I got to give it to the sharks.
Oh, well, I guess the sharks would. I mean, it's kind of, honestly, the sharks would win if they came in contact with each other as well. So,
well, that's a weird question.
Well, it seems like a perfectly normal question.
Who would win in a fight? 47 meters down or 47 meters up?
Well, if only someone would make a movie about a person trapped 47 meters up. I mean, I know I've seen 47 meters down, the horror masterpiece.
But as far as I know, we're not talking about 47 meters down. What possibly have to do with the movie we're talking about today?
See, now I was actually hoping to ask you this question because the only connection that I've been able to find between 47 Meters Down from 2017 and Fall from 2022, the movie we'll be talking about today, is that two of the producers, James Harris and Mark Lane, worked on both movies. Is that the connection? Because they were like different studios, different production companies, different distributors, different writers, different directors.
You've hit upon the one reason why these poor producers who have come up with an amazing formula for films could not title this movie 47 Meters Up, which is what they clearly wanted to do.
It wouldn't have been as high up as they wanted it to be if they'd called it 47 Meters Up. It would have been a somewhat, it would have been a dangerous height. No, it's very high. It's just not like astoundingly high. The movie we're talking about is titled Fall from 2022.
Yeah.
It is a survival horror, I guess you'd call it.
Yeah. One of those survival suspense thriller horror type things. Yeah. Like Frozen, not the Disney film.
It was directed and written by Scott Mann, also written by Jonathan Frank. Really good movie. I'd encourage anyone to see it if you like survival movies. It is a fantastic addition to the genre. I really enjoyed it. I thought it was really fun.
You just go in there to enjoy the suspense and not think too hard about it, because we're going to do that for you.
Yeah, that's what we love, thinking too hard about movies.
Go and watch it because it's great, and we are going to go way into spoilers here, so... Before that, hello and welcome to The Popcorn Isn't Real. This is the podcast where we talk about fan theories and do deep dives into films, trying to find alternate interpretations to blow your minds and possibly ruin your childhoods. Though not the childhood.
Nobody saw Fall as a child, I hope. Because if they did, they are still a child.
But, sometimes we do that. Anyway, and welcome to any new listeners we have. Thanks so much for tuning in. Today, we've got an amazing guest. We have the writer and director of the movie we're talking about today, Fall. Welcome to our podcast, Scott Mann.
Hello. Thanks for having me.
The first question I wanted to ask, just to start things off, was how did you end up on the project Fall? How did this project kind of begin?
It was myself and Jonathan Frank, the co-writer. The kernel of the idea, I think, came about when we were shooting a film called Final Score in London. And we were doing a kind of crazy stunt with Dave Bautista riding a motorcycle off the top of a building or something. What really scared us was where we were stood with the monitor. There was kind of a sheer drop really nearby. And it was about 8 to 10 story drop straight down. I remember the feeling it gave Jono and I, who are both kind of scared of heights, just this terror of like, please, no one go near the edge and like just stay away. And we start talking about the nature of heights and fear of death. And it's kind of a universal fear that whilst we've used it in films in the past for a sequence maybe, or in different sequences, and some really good memorable ones over time, but it had never been the kind of core element of a movie, the theme, to really kind of go into and look at all the different flavors of it, the psychology of it, and really have fun with it. So I think it was really born around then.
The plot for Fall is pretty straightforward.
Is it though? It's kind of convoluted with the relationship between them.
But these two young women are trying to get over the death of their friend / husband / lover, and they decide to climb to the top of a very tall tower, and they get stuck there, and then they try to get down. And that's the movie.
Like, there is obviously a story, that's being told through this film, which is, there's especially on the character side, I would say. But I think the central thing was, rather than being plotty, be about the roller coaster ride, be about the feelings that we're kind of taking the audience through, and be conscious of that, and kind of connect through our characters to take us on that ride. And so it was very, it was definitely, even before finishing the film, I remember, because it was very minimalist, the way we went about filming it, because it was very real. It was definitely my favorite filming experience I've ever done. It was very kind of raw and film grammar-like, in terms of okay, we want to capture this and or we want to convey this. It was a really nice, even though it was really hard, it was a really nice movie to make, the best one, my favorite I've ever been involved with, for sure.
Some interesting tidbits about the filming of the movie. In the movie, the abandoned 2,000-foot tall B-67 TV tower is actually inspired by the KXTV KOVR radio tower in Walnut Grove, California. That's what they use for the establishing shots of the tower and everything. But for the up close shots, they actually built a 100-foot high platform on top of a 2,000-foot high cliff.
Yeah.
Is that right? Because that's insane.
Yeah, that's pretty much, yeah. I think I learned this from the film's producer, a guy called James Harris. He'd done a bunch of great genre movies, right? One of which, 47 Meters Down, obviously dealt with a lot of water and a lot of depth. Yeah, great movie. He really pushed hard right from the start, do it for real. When you do something for real, it seems to capture this energy that goes beyond even the performance itself. It's I think when you're on set, the environment kind of feeds the performances, and those performances feed the crew and feed the storytelling and the capturing of the great moments. And I think that to do that, you really had to put it in a real situation. I did actually look and research into virtual environments and things like this, and we did some test cases on the guys who did the Mandalorian stage and doing a vertical one to kind of look down. But I think, again, all the other elements really were worth the trouble of basically going around California. It was actually COVID time as well. So I remember myself and James, who, by the way, if there's anyone on the film is most scared of heights, it's James. When I was driving up these mountains, in the desert, James was panicking and screaming about how we were going to die. And we went to all these remote locations and just tried to find the right height, the right kind of environmental kind of feel, to get as high as we possibly could with the greatest drop off we possibly could. And it took several, probably months in the end, to find the right site. And in the end, if I remember,
so you made James go visiting cliffs for months.
He hated it. He absolutely hated it. It was
just torturing him.
Totally, it was absolute torture. I think if you ask James what his worst film he's ever worked on, but maybe his favorite film of all, it's probably this one, right? Because it really put him through the paces. But they ended up finding the site that we filmed at. It was the top of a place called Shadow Mountain in the middle of the desert. They found it by going on Google Earth and kind of just looking at the altitude heights to places that were high enough and skimming along and finding these remote locations. And it turns out they're all a lot of them are kind of on the edge of military sites and all, they're all in the middle of bloody nowhere, right? So, but yeah, we found this location. I remember being up there and there was just enough room. There was kind of an area, a flat area, where we looked and kind of figured, right, if we can get the structure up here, and actually the techno crane was the biggest challenge, getting the techno crane up there. We had to essentially build parts of the road up to the mountain so we could get the vehicles that were able to lift it up. So it became a big engineering effort and a big haul to get everyone up there. But once we were up there, we were able just to shoot, and it was all real. And then you only really have to do the augmentation on the visuals when you look down past a certain point. It was kind of a one-time thing, but once we got it, it was great to be able to do it. Really cool.
I like the kind of the meta narrative you're telling here, where you saw Dave Bautista doing a stunt and it terrified you and stressed you out. You're like, let's do that for an entire shoot.
Yeah, it's all inspired by Dave Bautista on a motorcycle. It's jumping off the West Ham roof. It's no, it's funny.
Basically, you picked the top of a cliff in the middle of a desert. So, of course, there's no way to get there.
No, it's logistically a disaster.
Let's bring a bunch of cranes and construction.
And can I just say the other layer of complication, not to make it complicated enough, getting people out to the desert, like the whole drive to the desert from the hotel was it an hour and a half? And then we had to get to the bottom of the mountain and then get these little kind of cars up the top. And then the actors had to get prepared. And basically it amounted to pretty much a 4-hour shooting day once we were up there. It became this very intense thing where the actors, where Ginny and Grace really had to go up there. And we had a window usually. Once they're up there, they're pretty trapped up there. It's like hard, because you're getting on cherry pickers and going all the way at the top, and we're getting in position, we're shooting. But I remember we pretty much had segments of 2 hours shooting, which was usually limited by Grace's bladder, which meant breaking for lunch. Then it meant going back up, going here for another 2 hours. That was kind of what dictated the schedule. It was quite the effort, I think.
The first time I saw the trailer for this movie, I mean, it looked pretty cool. It's like ridiculous and epic and just like suspenseful. And then it won me over when it flashed the message on the screen from the producers of 47 Meters Down. And I was like, oh, it's 47 meters up.
That's what we called it on. That's what we called it on set, by the way. On set, we jokingly called it 47 meters up.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, we totally called it that.
That's literally what Leif and I have been calling it since we saw the first trailer. We were like, we got to see 47 meters up. It looks so good.
That is totally what James and I jokingly call it, yeah. We could have called it 47 meters up, of course. It might have resulted in lawsuits,
no.
But
no, it's not accurate anyway. It's much higher than that.
It's definitely not only 47 meters. Yeah.
2000.
That's very true.
Yeah, it's a good formula. Just trap the people 47 meters in any direction. I can't wait
any
for the
direction.
next sequel.
Direction.
47 meters sideways.
Yeah.
Well, so if you watched this movie and you thought that it was pretty straightforward, you were wrong, because I'm going to blow your mind with this theory. Now listen, because this could get a little complicated.
Okay, I'd love to hear it.
The main character is named Becky, and she has a best friend named Hunter. They go climbing a lot.
Hunter did not die. She actually murdered
Becky's husband, Dan.
Oh.
And then faked her own death to start a new life.
Right.
Wow.
Okay.
Okay, this goes like way many layers deep.
She faked her death. So it was an elaborate ruse by Hunter, and she pretended. Then what happened to Becky in that theory? Did Becky get down, or?
She did. I'll tell you. Here's how it happened.
I just gotta preface this. As far as the theories we covered go, this one's, it may be the most out there. I think it's very out there.
So that would be the biggest bombshell, I think, is in this movie, the big plot twist is Hunter died. Even though it seems like she survived for a little while, we find out that she dies. I am saying Hunter actually survived. Okay. We'll get into why I believe that and the preponderance of evidence that exists for that theory.
They did show her fall about 1,900 feet to the ground.
No, she fell onto a satellite first. And then her body just chilled there for a while, supposedly. And then after she was dead, they knocked her down the rest of the way, or Becky did. That's what the movie would have us believe, is that Hunter tried to make a jump. She didn't quite make it. She fell onto like this random little platform that's just there and died, and birds ate her. And then eventually Becky climbed down to the platform and shoved Hunter off to cushion her phone so that she could like make a phone call from the ground floor.
Send a text.
Yeah, it's pretty unbelievable, and I think my theory is more believable.
I kind of think the opposite, but okay.
Okay, so I know what you're thinking. This is way out there. Why this movie was so simple? But why do I believe this? Well, so to prove this theory, there are a few points I'm going to have to prove, and I'm going to lay them out here. First, we need to prove that Hunter sabotaged Dan's gear to murder him. That Dan being Becky's husband who died at the beginning, who dies at the beginning of the film.
Okay.
The next thing I need to prove is that Hunter had motive to murder Dan.
Okay.
And I need to prove that Hunter faked her own death.
And survived.
Those are the things that I need to prove.
Right at the beginning of the movie, we see Dan and Becky climbing together, having a great time on this cliffside. They start to make out because they're just having so much fun. And immediately, Hunter screams from across the side of the cliff, "Ew, gross, get a room." Which I thought is good consistency because she's cheating with Dan. So she's like, "You don't kiss my lover."
Right, yeah. Yeah, she's jealous.
Right after that, Dan falls to his death. Now, if my memory serves, it was not his gear that malfunctioned, but rather the hole in the cliff that he inserted his gear into that did not hold his gear up.
They are using what is called cams to anchor into the rock face of a very high cliff as they climb up. Becky already, before she's even had a traumatic experience, seems terrified of climbing. Even though they imply that she's a highly experienced climber and she does this all the time, she's already doing the thing where she like cowers against the wall. It's like, I can't do it, Dan.
Well, but maybe she's just trying to like fit in with the in crowd. Like all her friends are climbers, so she wants to be like them.
There's only 2 other people up there. Okay.
Those are her only 2 friends. They're the only people she cares about.
So they are climbing normally with cams and ropes and harnesses. Hunter is free soloing like the total badass she is. I don't even think she has a chalk bag, which is what usually the only thing you really bring with you if you're free soloing. Free solo is when you climb, you do rock climbing, usually up a cliff or whatever, without any gear at all, except for like a bag of chalk to keep your hands from, getting sweaty and stuff. If you fall, you die. But free soloers, even though they seem like these like adrenaline junkie badasses, they're pretty smart and they practice their routes. They don't do it all at once. If they're not feeling it on a certain day, it seems like it's just not going right. They don't know the route. They'll just climb back down and they'll try again the next day.
Well, right. All the ones who are alive climb like that because if they didn't, they wouldn't be alive anymore, right? It's a dangerous activity where one mistake will get you killed. So you have to be incredibly careful if you're alive. It's what's it called? Survivorship's bias, right? Like the ones who are alive are the careful ones.
Yes. Dan cams into the rock. Now, these cams are spring-loaded metal dealies. I'm not a climber.
Hey, where do you get those metal dealies for his feet?
Or shoes.
What's the attitude? I just want some dealies.
Can't remember the word shoes. Some horse dealies for his feet. They're spring-loaded things that come out and hold on to crevices and things like that. They're well-tested. If they're new, they should be enough to hold your weight, and they should not break or come loose if you have cammed it correctly. An experienced climber, which Dan is, should cam it into the rock and then make sure that it's secure by pulling on it and checking it before they just assume that that is a secure anchor. So he would have checked this cam to make sure it was properly anchored.
Or he wouldn't have and would have died. Wait, that's what happened.
I was on one of the subreddits about climbing and they were like, those cams would never fail like that. So the thought was that maybe Hunter sabotaged Dan's equipment because he didn't choose her. He chose Becky. Now, of course, Hunter would never get back at Becky because she loves Becky, but she doesn't feel the same way about Dan. She take that guy out.
Yeah.
If the Reddit authorities take issue with this scene, then by golly, it must be you must be right.
Now, a side note, in the normal interpretation of the movie, I love that Hunter is just so badass here. She's like, I'm coming down to presumably rescue Dan, but she's like a free soloer with no equipment. What's she even gonna do?
She's gonna catch him,
climb down and just grab him and climb up with him on her back. Yeah. Anyway, she seems to assume, and as far as I can tell, is right, that she can do anything that she wants to do.
I'm getting mixed messages. You're trying to convince me that Hunter's a murderer, but you seem to be talking about her as if you admire her.
I love Hunter.
Badass, telling her how great
Hunter is my favorite character.
She seems like a horrible person so far.
Well,
she had an affair with Dan, her best friend's husband, and then murdered him.
Right. She may be a horrible person. I'm not going to argue that. I just still kind of think that she's a cool badass. Like we might think about other cool badasses. I don't know, like Walter White. He's kind of a cool badass, but he's not a good person.
So Hunter is the Walter White of fall.
She's the one people are afraid of when they're on the rock cliff. Little side note. In a movie like this, where you're like trapped in one location on top of a tower or say in a ski lift, you don't want your name to be Dan, apparently, because Dan dies here and Dan died in the movie Frozen. Adam Green's
he didn't.
Frozen.
What are you talking about? Have you seen Frozen? Nobody died in that movie.
Sorry, we proved no one died in Frozen.
Just ask Adam Green. He knows.
Watching Frozen, normally Dan gets eaten by wolves.
Don't you mean he played with his trained wolves?
Yes. All right, Dan played with his trained wolves.
Clearly what happened.
Go listen to our Frozen episode if you're curious.
I gotta listen to that
what we're rambling on about. It was really good. We even had a great guest.
Yeah, the legendary Adam Green, director of Frozen, director of the Hatchet series, star of his own podcast, the Movie Crypt podcast.
It's about 12 months later, the next time we see Becky, and she's getting drunk. She's getting messages from her dad, but she doesn't answer him. He leaves a message saying, "I've tried to console you in every way I know how." As we see later from his personality, this implies he does not know how to console people.
Yeah, fair enough.
Because his methods for trying to console her are not good at all.
So far, I don't disagree.
He told her, must have been just a few months ago, less than 12 months after her husband died, that she shouldn't be so broken up about it because her husband was an asshole.
Right. It's not a very nice thing to say.
He claims he didn't say that, but that's what Becky says that he said. And I would be more inclined to believe Becky in this instance because, the dad is being defensive.
Throughout this movie. She doesn't ever hallucinate.
She's a trustworthy.
Imagine things that didn't happen.
Here's one of the things we know with abusive parents, that they're always like, the rules apply to me, but not, or the other way around. The rules apply to you, but not to
me. He's like authoritatively permissive. He's like,
no,
don't you understand? You get to do everything, and I am subjugated.
The other way around.
Subjugate me more. He's such a masochist. He's so into it. He's like, I need more rules.
No, the other way around. The rules apply to you, but not to me. When Becky swears at him, and I have to point out that she is an adult woman, he says, "You don't get to talk to me like that. We raised you better than that." The next thing he says to her is he insults Dan again, and then he says, "I don't care about your grief, sorrow, whatever the hell this is." And then he swears at her and says, "You know damn well, God damn it, Becky, I need you to try."
He did teach her to use that language. I learned it from you, Dad.
So again, the rules apply to her,
rules
but not
for
to
me,
him.
but not for thee. Wait, backwards. So interesting to note, when she swears at him, it was in the original cut of the movie. It was probably a lot more vile, like the things that she said to him. And that's why it seems like he's overreacting. It's almost like a few years ago, I was on a plane. So the movie Spy had just came out. So it must have been about 2015. Spy, of course, being, starring Jude Law, Jason Statham, Melissa McCarthy. She has to pretend she's a spy. But anyway, of course, I was on an airplane. So the cut of the movie, this being a rated R movie with a lot of, swearing and bad language in it, I ended up watching the airline cut of the movie, which removed all the swearing and bad language, which made it a truly amazing masterpiece of a movie. Because in this movie, she has to convince everyone that first she is a rough around the edges, hardcore bodyguard, and then that she is like a master assassin psychopath with no feelings or anything, right? And she does this by constantly just mouthing off and swearing at everybody. And I've never seen the theatrical cut of this movie, but in the cut of the movie that I saw, she flipped her lid and suddenly started calling everybody, "Why, you doo-doo head, you sack of doo-doo," and just really went off on those doo-doo heads, which caused all these hardcore criminals to just, recoil in disgust and say, whoa, calm down. Hey, you don't need to go that hard.
Use that kind of language.
it was an amazing movie. But yeah, I think something like that happened here because apparently the original cut of Fall included over 30 F-bombs that they had to cut out. So what they ended up doing was, I guess they used artificial intelligence dubbing technology to not only alter the language that was used, but also the on-screen mouth flaps. Now, I've heard that it was at Lionsgate request that the movie Fall be censored, that it had too many F-bombs, had just too much swearing in general, and then that you brought Flawless AI in to do the censoring. Is that right?
More or less.
Was it your own choice?
It was, yeah.
Okay.
I would say like, it was a bit more, it wasn't kind of that black and white in a sense. It was actually the point where we made this movie without a domestic distributor. So we made it for very little money. And then when we finished the movie, it was a case of playing it to Lionsgate, who I'd done movies with in the past, and we all had relationships there. And we kind of previewed it early with them. They really liked it. They were very supportive of it. And they said that, look, we have a window we'd like to put this out in, and we'd like to put it out wide, but we can't put it out wide if it's got third. They did an MPA pass. We were surprised how many swear words there were because we never planned it to be an R-rated movie. But it turned, it was all acting at the top of the towers. There was all this like fucking, and there was about 36 or 35 F-bombs, mainly from Ginny, by the way, who's the one with a real potty mouth. She will agree on that. Yeah. And so they, so basically they said, look, but we need it PG-13. Can you guys do that? And so we looked first about reshooting, which is like the typical way you would do this stuff, right? Well, we looked first actually at editing them out, right? Like very often like edit behind a head and do these kind of things. And we went through that process, but there's nowhere to cut to because it's two people sat in the middle of nowhere on a tower. So that quickly kind of finished. So we're like, okay, well, what do we need to shoot to make this work? And what do we need to reshoot? And we're going through that process and costing it out. And it was costing an absolute fortune because obviously you have to kind of get to the top of the thing, and there's all these, and we really didn't want to do it any kind of blue screen, green screen stuff because knew how that would have kind of fucked the movie on all the efforts we've done to do it genuinely. And really it was it was these two worlds that I've had a foot in each for a little while now in terms of like we've been building up the AI company, and really the focus on the build out of all that technology has been a platform that serves translation mainly, right? So to take kind of translation dialogue, it was prior to us actually launching product. It was when things were still in the dev cycle, or kind of starting to kind of move into kind of a production cycle. And but we'd recently kind of got it to a point where we were able to deliver cinematic level like ACES color space, like full like IMAX resolution deliverables, which was a big kind of turning point in the company. And I don't even think it was my suggestion. Someone else had said like, why don't we just use that for this and like do new dialogue? And it's so obvious now someone says it, but it's like it became this, it's like, yeah, why don't we try that? And then so we so we tried it and then it worked, and so we went for it and we did it, and it was kind of a quite fitting thing that a journey on one side of a thing I was doing kind of fit neatly into this other one, and we were able to pull it off. There's a slight compromise there maybe on a couple of those lines, but generally it is the movie that I envisaged, and it's what I wanted, and it tells the story. And same with Ginny and Grace. Do you know what I mean? They were very involved in this process, and they, we were all proud of what came out of it. And I think we got a chance to. It was weird that I got basically to show my kids who are 12 and 10, and they were able to watch one of Dad's movies. And even though it is a bit much, actually, when I was watching with them, I was thinking, I'm scaring these kids for their whole life. But they got to watch it because they were in it. They have a little cameo in it actually in the movie. So they got to kind of watch this movie, go at the premiere, and hang out with everyone, do all this stuff. And I think, and it was nice to be able to share it. And I'm glad, like for me, I'm so glad it was able to play wide. Like it's a much wider audience it's had to reach, and we probably wouldn't be having this conversation if it hadn't had that opportunity. So I think it's as a example of kind of something that benefits kind of filmmaking as a whole. I think it's a great example.
That's just unbelievable. It's so incredibly serendipitous.
It's ridiculous. I know.
The exact product you needed to solve the exact problem.
It's like a great plan, kind of 4 years in the making without realizing.
I mean, to me, it is probably my all-time favorite, like, legend of filmmaking, like the little myth of filmmaking there. Because to me, it's like you got like Tony Stark and his suit, his Iron Man suit just got crushed. He doesn't have any Iron Man suit, and the bad guy's coming, and then he's like, "Wait, in my closet, I've got a prototype suit that I've never tested before, but it's just what I need at just the right time." And then he puts it on, and it's even more powerful than what he thought. That's basically what you did with this AI. You're like, "Wait, I've got it in my closet, and it will do everything we need and better."
It's like that's funny. What a great analogy. Well, thank you. So yeah, I think I love the analogy. I think but I think look, this is I'll say what it is as well. Like the start of this thing, I'll shoot a film differently now. I know what we can do on the AI side, and it's going to change how we all make movies, how we all distribute movies. It's got a huge impact.
Absolutely.
And I think that's what's kind of exciting about it, is like you find these new use cases and you find these things in it, and it's like it's these power tools for film creatives, really, that gets, that's why I'm so excited about the Flawless piece. Is it just I think we'll have a world where we can make movies that are more kind of a better movie and have it reach further. And those things are kind of central to us all having more opportunity and making original stories. So I think there's a huge piece of this where it's very exciting. It terrifies some people, of course, the AI piece, but
even just the ability to tweak one word in the perfect take is insane when it comes to directing. Like, it's an incredible product.
It's really cool. It's like then what's coming down the pipe on it of where it's going is even more kind of crazy. So I think and I think as filmmakers we're going to enjoy it.
No, I mean 100%.
Now, Hunter gives us a few hints as to what her plan is when she first talks to Becky about climbing the tower. She says, "I'll rest when I'm dead." She's already foreshadowing that she needs to fake her own death so that she can rest. Why else would she say that? She doesn't know she's going to die in the normal interpretation.
Well, it's just foreshadowing by the writers. That exists.
She wants to climb the B67 TV tower over 2,000 feet straight up. Now, this is a little suspect. Why, and this was something mentioned on the Reddit climbing boards as well, why would a free soloer want to climb a TV tower? That's not hard or exciting. It's a ladder.
Right? It's just climbing a ladder, yes.
It's a big ladder.
My interpretation of this was that she wanted to get Becky back into climbing, and she wanted to do it with something that made her feel like super triumphant and like a real champion, but in a way that was as safe as possible. So she's like, let's climb a really tall ladder,
Road trip. So Hunter live streams while driving and almost gets them killed.
Yeah, it's true. Yeah.
I love the way she's just constantly trying to be that person who dies in a horror movie by just being a reckless jerk all the time.
Yeah, I know.
But I believe that this is calculated. She is a live streamer. She wants everyone to know exactly how reckless and stupid she's being. And it's a calculated move because it makes her death more believable. The death that she is going to fake. She now has thousands and thousands of witnesses that can attest. Oh yeah, Hunter was totally reckless. It makes sense. We were thinking she might die eventually, right? Yeah. She almost got hit by that truck. If you've even seen her in one scene in this movie, you know that she's reckless. She does something reckless in literally every scene she's in.
She's a reckless girl.
Yeah.
So she pulled out in front of the truck on purpose. That's her alibi there.
But she wasn't meant to hit the truck, right? Like she wasn't. No, that would just be crazy.
I love Hunter. I mean, she's an amazing character.
Yeah.
And I think what's so good about her is that she's surprising because when you first start watching the movie, she seems like that reckless character who you're supposed to almost hate a little bit. And you kind of like, oh, she's going to die first. She's definitely going to die. But then as it goes along, she really steals the show and she becomes her own character. And she does end up dying first, but you don't find that out till the end. And she really like surprises you, morphing from what you feel is almost a flat character to a really surprising one.
Thanks. Yeah, I think there's two evolutions, I would say, in her character. Like one was that the very first draft we ever did of this was with where Dan was going up with Becky, and it was actually a different dynamic. Like weirdly, Hunter did exist in the first act of the movie, and it was Dan had an affair with Hunter, her best friend, and then they were facing this thing at the top. And really, it was a lot more interesting having the two friends exploring living and what's life kind of thing, right? Like, why do we do this? And we kind of look at these kind of thrill seeks and our fear of death and everything, and it all relates to kind of life and death and what is life and living life. And I think the central idea of you have one character who, after a great loss, retreats and goes down, right? And then you have another character that has the capacity to, that hides from it another way by going out and kind of living on the edge and pushing herself to near death. And I think both those journeys can then have a kind of arc journey where one of them you're peeling away the truth of who's really underneath and peeling away the facade, which is Hunter, right? What she's hiding behind, the thing she has to get past is like, stop pretending, stop hiding behind that facade, and be honest about what's going on. And with Becky, you have kind of the opposite, where she needs to kind of really climb out of that hole and kind of embrace, find the will to live, and take her character from a place of wanting to die to fighting to live, to gobbling a vulture and fighting away to survival.
You had mentioned the vultures, and I just wanted to ask, when did that come about, the decision to use vultures as like the threat?
Can I read you the fucking vultures? I tell you what, when they say don't work with animals, it's for all the chances on the movie, that was one that was the hardest to kind of surpass, I think. The guys, to be fair, the guys and the vultures themselves were great, but it's hard to direct vultures. It turns out they really don't do anything you ask them to do. But
who would have thought?
You would have thunk it, right? I think it was a case of, I tried to kind of theme it in as well. And that if you actually look closely, like Dan at the start of the movie, it's really a bird that kills him, right? That shoots out of a gap and kills him. And I thought the ultimate is Becky kills the bird at the end, and that'll do the arc. But
she saved him. Right? She avenged him.
In some strange way. But I remember it was, I think it's about survival. I remember there being some controversy about the bird and about killing the bird. And I remember, a few people involved in the movie were just like, you can't kill an animal. Do you know what I mean? People are going to go nuts. And which kind of, in my mind, I think it's crazy, right? We kill animals, we eat animals all day long. And just because it's behind a wall doesn't mean we don't do it. So let's not pretend that we're not actually at our nature, these primitive beasts. So I think Becky at the start of the movie is the last person on earth you would expect to kill that bird. But I will say, actually, I will say another credit that is deserved here. The inspiration of that bird and what happened, my 96-year-old grandmother, my grandmother by marriage, I guess, but she used to fly fighter jets and things in the Second World War. So a very kind of amazing history of this lady. But she's like, if you would meet her, you'd think, oh, she's kind of like, she's old, she's a little frail, and she's dotting around her house. And she was telling Sarah and I once this story of we went to visit her, and there was something out in the yard. We're like, what is that in the yard? And she said, oh, and she said, these crows, they keep eating all the putty in my windows. And she described the story how this big black crow kept going to her windows, pecking out the putty, the sealant between the glass. And because she lived out in Wales, it would be freezing, and it was this cycle. And she said, so what I did, Sarah, as I went, I snuck behind it when it was eating the putty, and I grabbed it by the neck. And she described how this massive crow was fluttering around, and then she had to beat it to death.
Oh my God.
And she really did this. And then she said, and then I put it on a spike, and that's what's on the lawn, and no crows will come anywhere near. It was like, wow. So
she made an example out of it.
Did. And
she went medieval on that crow.
She went medieval on
Holy
that crow.
crap.
And,
she's a sweet old lady.
Sweet old lady. And that's why I always kind of justified, Becky would definitely be able to kill that vulture if needs be. So it was inspired. Yeah, it was inspired by Mary Hunter. And if you see the footage of the kind of doll we use to do the kind of physical stuff, it is like we all laughed on set out loud when we were watching Grace do this thing. She's just like beating up this large, like feathered, like polystyrene thing, which looks silly, but it's through the magic of movies. When you combine it with the right sounds and the right visuals, you get away with with making it look like something it wasn't. So
yeah, it looks great in the movie.
So, right, they get it to the tower.
So on the way up there, they come across the carcass of a mangled, dying, I don't know, looks like What do you think it
Deer
is?
or
Like
something?
a jackal? Is that a mangled dying animal that's being picked at by vultures? Hunter's joke post, and I put joke in air quotes there. I know you can't see me, but her joke post where she takes a picture of this mangled, bloody body and then writes feeling peckish and posts it would make no sense at all to her followers. I understand how to her it was a joke about the birds
Because
that were
the birds were
pecking the
it.
body, but there
they
were no
chased them
birds in her
away.
picture, and nobody would be able to tell that that bloody mess in the picture had been ripped apart by vultures.
Now, Hunter knows a lot about this tower, as she explains to her followers. She knows the exact length of the ladder and when she's going to get to the ledge, and then how long of a climb after to get to the platform on top. Even Googling statistics about these towers, it's kind of hard to find information except for just the overall height. I believe she has climbed this tower before. She climbed
with
it
like a measuring tape.
Yes.
she surveyed
very
this tower.
Like I said, she climbed the route that
Well,
she
she had
knew
to
Dan
because
was
she
going
needed to
climb.
loosen all those screws, right?
Exactly. She had to loosen the screws, so she's already come up and sabotaged the tower itself, just as she did with Dan, where she climbed his route first to know which cams she needed to sabotage.
Boy, she's insatiable. I legitimately, I love, I think it's an amazing touch how as they climb, and, you know, Becky's basically having a nervous breakdown because this is horrible. Hunter's like, just sing a nursery rhyme. It'll keep your mind off of it. And then she picks Ring Around the Rosie, which is the greatest song you could ever sing while climbing.
No, I think I love that.
That is good writing. That is
great.
plus. I loved it.
When I was watching that with Christine, I leaned over to her and I said, I would have gone with Humpty Dumpty.
Yeah. Wow.
But then later on, when Hunter is trying to make that jump, the jump where she quote unquote falls, she sings Humpty Dumpty
Yes, she
sat on a
does.
wall.
She does.
Humpty Dumpty had a great fall. Anyway, it's pretty good. Hunter's trying to look as reckless as possible. And when she gets up on the next ladder, she shakes it and the bolts come loose. Now, I believe
Pretty
this was
great.
intentional. She had
She was just
come up
shaking
here
those bolts
previously.
loose.
She had loosened the bolts and she shakes it now. And that's how she knows it will fall later. And that's part of her plan. All right, so they make it to the top.
When the day before the shoot, I want to say it was, when everything was finally set and we had the safety sign off and all this, the stuff that you need, we went up there and it was the first time seeing it kind of built. And I'll be honest, it did look really scary the way it's just kind of like bobbing around in the wind like a pin. And it's like, and myself, Grace and Ginny, I went first, Grace went second, Ginny, we all went up together for the first time ever. And I do remember kind of climbing up the thing and it was like peripherally, you just feel like you're really fucking high up. And you even looking down, it still looks high, but it's peripheral vision. Your mind says, what the fuck are you doing? And so climbing up this thing, it was terrifying. And I remember I got to the top and getting over the bit at the top is actually what was hard because you have to kind of come away from the ladder and it is awful. And we did it. And then I remember Grace came up after me, and when she saw the view, she started crying, and it was relief and kind of a beautiful moment and all these things, which I asked her to kind of hold on to that feeling and replay it when you do it on screen. But it was a really nice, and then Ginny came up and we all kind of appreciated the moment that kind of plays in the movie, which is like, wow, look at this is incredible. And it kind of got me excited because it was like, this is going to be beautiful as well as terrifying. And I felt it was really good for it.
Yeah.
Well, I honestly, watching the movie, I can't tell how much of their performance is acting and how much is like actually.
I think there's a lot of meta going on there. Yeah.
Feet in the air.
Yeah.
Those poor girls.
So good.
Yeah.
So good. I mean, I got to ask, did Grace, who played Becky, and Virginia, who played Hunter, of course, were they okay with the whole process? Like, did either of them have a problem with heights coming into this?
Yes, both of them did. No, they were. They okay. I absolutely love them. When I guess I should kind of reverse back a little bit. When auditioning on this film, a lot of actresses and actors say they could do anything, right? Like just, like wanting the job, right? Very determined. And so I've noticed over the time that
always say yes.
Yeah. I can ride a zebra. It's like, it's fine. And whatever. I remember when I first met with them individually, I remember showing them the plan because we had the engineering kind of schematics of the tower and the cliff kind of drafted out and everything. And I remember showing them kind of a printout. I said, "Oh, this is how we're going to do it," because they were like, "Oh, we're going to do it in the studio," and like thinking all these things. So I was like, "Actually, we're going to do it for real, and this is how we're going to do it." And I showed them the kind of the sketch, which basically just made this big kind of tower on the edge of a cliff and two people kind of huddled there. And so you'll be up here. It'll be really high, but don't worry, that's stunt truss in the center. It shouldn't come down. And I could tell by the white people's eyes who was like really serious to go for it and who was kind of pretending, and it wiped out a lot of early contenders who otherwise you would have thought would have been perfect, but they needed the right kind of the right attitude going in, honestly. And Ginny and Grace both had that in spades, and they were honest. They said, "Look, I cannot say how I'm going to feel. I'm nervous looking at that picture and I'm nervous thinking about doing this, but I have done, like, I think at the time, Ginny had done a bunch of wire work on something she'd done previously. Grace is very athletic dancer. She's got a lot of kind of physical discipline. And they so kind of embodied the characters that we were writing. It was just felt there was an honesty there, which we could tap into and really, would kind of pull through the lens.
So Hunter does a one-handed hang, which is cool for us to see in like the wide shots, but it doesn't look that great in the like selfie photo they take. You can basically only see their faces.
Yeah.
And then she forces Becky to do it.
She's a great friend.
She makes Becky do an even more dangerous version because she's only holding on to Hunter.
Yep. Better to hold on to someone's sweaty hand than, a metal bar.
So Becky scatters Dan's ashes. Hunter cries, I think because she feels some remorse for killing Dan. It just kind of gets to her. She says she's kind of surprised that it gets to her. Hunter does not go down the ladder when it collapses. She's been trying to seem stupid this whole time, so it's believable when she quote unquote dies. And she's live streamed everything, so there's evidence. But on the most dangerous part of her plan, where the ladder collapses, she puts Becky on the ladder. She's smart. She's not risking her own life with this risky stunt. Now, I believe she does ultimately want Becky to survive, but if someone's going to die, it might as well be Becky, not her. But she does save Becky here. She pulls her up. There's an emergency box.
Yeah, dude, she is really strong. Like, to not only catch Becky, I'm presumably 110, 115 pound weight just dropping, and it's just, okay, I'll just catch that weight and pull it up.
Pull your dead weight up. She's not even using her feet. Yeah. Well, I kind of believe that Hunter's actor, she looks a little more like she's got some muscle, but man, Becky doesn't look like she could do any of this stuff.
And she doesn't. Even though she thinks she does.
Yeah, that's very true. So,
that was my favorite part of the movie, because later on, when she, spoilers, thinks that she pulls Hunter back up when really Hunter died, it turns out she didn't. And
she just pulled it back up.
And it was so hard for her to pull that backpack up. She's straining and grunting and wrapping it around it's like, that scene makes so much more sense when you know that she was just pulling up a backpack.
Becky asks why Hunter does all these reckless things. Hunter says, I would like to be remembered for my life, not my death. And she admits why she's up here with this stupid plan on camera. She says, I do this because of him. She's doing this because she murdered Dan. That's why she's doing it.
Right. So when she says, I do this because of him, she means I do this because of him.
The RV people steal Hunter's truck. I believe that this is so it won't be impounded later and she'll have it. I think those RV people were working with Hunter. I think she drops her shoe down with a message in it, and he looks at it and walks away because he knows, it's not time to pick up Hunter. Like, she doesn't just walk out of here after she gets down through the desert. The RV guys pick her up down the road. He only picks up her shoe and looks inside, so I believe she had previously written a note on her shoe that survives the fall And the plan was always to throw that shoe off she probably had different messages on each shoe. And
right. Okay. So it's like, yeah, it's like a Paul Revere situation. Yeah. One if I land, two if I see. Left if things are going great, right if I need help.
Right.
So throws down the correct shoe.
Right. She didn't know exactly how long this would take. So this guy was supposed to come and check on her. She throws down one of the shoes.
She should have done it backwards, because the shoe that she did throw down turns out to reveal her relationship. Yeah,
I think that she wanted to reveal that secret to Becky before she
then why
quote unquote died.
Go through with the whole thing?
I don't know. She's not going to reveal that she murdered Dan.
Oh, okay. Just she's not shameful about the murder.
No, he deserved it. She
just wants to reveal that she cheated with him, because that will make everyone feel better. I get you.
Now, she's not really proud of it, because she says it was a huge mistake. It got out of hand. I tried so hard not to, but I fell for him. This is her ironically kind of saying it, because actually she made him fall for her when he fell down.
She's so clever and evil. Not exactly then she says, kind of thing you should joke about, even if you can turn a phrase.
She says, a true statement. She says, I loved him, but I love you more. So I ended him. Oh, wait. She says, so I ended it.
Oh, no. I was going to say, not sure if that's the exact line there.
But I think she probably wanted to say, I ended him.
Oh, boy. There's a big epic scene that was in all the trailers where she has to like swing from the rope and jump to the satellite dish, right?
Yeah.
I think that this is the reason that she was always playing the song Cherry Pie. I think that she was alluding to what she was going to do later. Because have you heard the song Cherry Pie?
Several times in this movie. But
well, do you know what most of the song is about?
No, I don't know the song very well.
Basically, 90% of the lines in the song are all about swinging. So the whole song basically is swinging on the front porch, swinging on the lawn, swinging where we want because there ain't nobody home, swinging to the left and swinging to the right. So that's the whole song. Swinging in the living room, swinging in the kitchen. It's swinging in there because she wanted me to feed her. Swinging. The whole song, it's all about swinging. Is every single verse of this song is just swinging.
Hunter does a lot of swinging on the rope.
She's swinging on that rope.
This is true. I'm swinging in other senses, I imagine, right? In
with other people's husbands.
There you go. It's no, that's a good theory, but that is not the reason. Do you know, it was also a thing like it was kind of deeply ironic that she was singing about food when she was starving. I remember that being something discussed at some point. It was like, God, of all the songs you want to sing, right. But I don't know what we picked that. I can't remember the exact origins of picking it. I just remember it did feel very Hunter. And I remember even in early drafts, everyone was like, there's no way we can afford Cherry Pie. There's no way we can do for Cherry Pie. All these kind of different,
I was surprised to see it in the movie.
To be honest though, I've always felt with films very often, I've had this, right, with movies where you pick what feels like the perfect song and you kind of make the scene with it in mind. You'll play it on set even and you'll have the feeling all captured. And then you have to change it in the end and it kills you, right? So I remember really early on there being a lot of discussion of like having to carve out money, which we didn't really have, right? We had a very tight budget. So to carve out a chunk of money for Cherry Pie was a hard thing to do. But it was always like, I think James, producer, always dangled it as, okay, you finish shooting this on time and we do this on budget, then you can keep Cherry Pie. But if you go over, you lose it. It's going to be some sound alike from God knows where. That was the origins. Unfortunately, don't go as deep as maybe you hope, or maybe they do. Unraveled.
No, that was
subconscious.
Everything I hoped for. I will always love this song because one time when I was going on a short road trip with some of my buddies in high school, and this song came on the radio, and we were all listening to it in the car. And then one of my friends suddenly perks up, and like he's looking around the car to all of us. He's like, "Hey guys, you guys know that I just realized this, but I don't think this song's actually about cherry pie. And we were all like, dude, you think? I thought it was a very, very innocent moment for this guy who thought he was so clever figuring out, the raunchy undertones of this song. That's the point of the song. And it's not, we weren't like young. We were all like 17. It's like, dude, you just figured this out.
It's like that song about peaches. The song's just about peaches. Did you know?
I don't know what song you're talking about.
Oh, you know that there's a song about if I could have my little way, I'd have peaches every day.
Wow.
And then it's like millions of peaches.
He just wants peaches
for me. Millions of peaches, peaches for free. And it talks about him climbing up into a tree as a kid and finding a peach and like sticking his finger into the peach.
Oh, he just loves peaches. He's like,
and everyone, of course, assumes it's a very sexual song. But the artist, the person who wrote it, is like, no, it's just about peaches. When I was a kid, I found an orchard full of peaches. That's what it's about.
Oh my gosh, that's amazing.
At this point, Hunter has said all that she needs to say. She's apologized. It's time to fake her death. She ends with, "I'm sorry, Bex. I love you." This is the part where she's going to fake her death. So let's look at this part.
She needs Becky as her alibi. She needs someone who's scared out of her wits, who's willing to believe anything, who will tell the authorities, oh yeah, Hunter fell, she died, dropped to her death. So when she climbs down, after they get up, she climbs down to the satellite dish. Now, Becky cannot see anything below the satellite dish. And Hunter is the one who says the ladder is broken off below it. But Hunter is lying.
Right, I see.
The Hunter is lying. Okay. The ladder's there. During that part where Hunter makes the jump, and Becky, for a long time, Becky sees nothing. She's just sitting up on top of the tower. It takes her a long time to look
She's
over.
She's like, pull me up! She's like, go!
During that time, before Becky looks down, that's when Hunter just climbs down the ladder that's there below the satellite dish.
And she just pulled up the back,
she just leaves.
That's what was happening. But how do you explain
exactly?
How do you explain her looking down and seeing Hunter's body though?
Well, see,
I was in her mind. You explained it in your movie.
Yeah, you already answered that for us. Is that Becky is an unreliable narrator. She looks down and she sees nothing because Hunter's not there. She's actually seeing the truth right there. Eventually, she comes to believe the lie that Hunter has been telling, and that's when she starts to hallucinate that there is a body there.
Right, it's a hat
when there actually isn't. Yeah. It's a twist within a twist.
Wow, this is incredible. This is great. When do we reveal this though? Is this the start of the sequel when both of them are alive?
No, this is this is something that you really just it's below the surface. Only the smartest viewers.
It's true. This is well, I'm glad they cottoned onto it because it was hard to write and like weed that in without in such a way. I have to say, Jono and I are thrilled that they figured that out.
I mean, just think about it. What are the odds that Hunter's body would have landed on that satellite dish and that it wouldn't break? Zero. Like, that's where the ladder broke.
Well, and it starts to break when Becky gets on it. Like, and Becky's a twig. Like, if it didn't break from, Hunter, who's actually like kind of buff, from Hunter landing on it, then it definitely wouldn't break from Becky standing on it after she drops Hunter off.
I guess if there's two bodies on it.
Right, but it doesn't start to break when they're both on it. Only after she drops Becky and then settles in. True. Then it's like, no, I'm going to break. I'm like, no, you definitely would.
One thing on this podcast, if there are any possible continuity errors or bloopers in a movie, we take those to be fact. Okay, those were intended.
There
are no mistakes.
Okay, that's definitely not true. I want to see which ones you caught because there is a lot. I always kind of reassure myself a little bit with films is that it's hard to make people follow plot point. To really follow plot points, they say say it and see it 2 or 3 times, right? To really kind of follow it. And then very often I feel like you can maybe get away with things when you don't look too hard, but there is a lot in there if you look hard, or not even hard, just lightly. I'm looking forward to these. I'm like,
So right after Becky looks down and quote unquote realizes Hunter is dead and sees her body, we get a wide shot of the whole tower. and you can see the satellite dish and there is no body on it. So I think what that's telling us is it showed us the lie, and then it cuts back to show us outside of Becky's perspective, here's the truth. And that's where the really smart viewers hone in, and they're like, aha, the wide shot is the truth.
Think, let's say that's what we did intentionally, and then let's not mention it got past QC on a VFX and no one noticed. It's like, can you even tell? Yeah, it's probably what happened. But yeah, that I didn't even realize that. I'm discovering these things myself. So good point though.
Now, this theory, unfortunately, may ruin Becky's arc a little bit. Okay. Because, unfortunately, after this point, she's dehydrated, she's hungry, she's hallucinating. This theory doesn't believe she does any of the things that she did. She doesn't climb to the top of the tower and recharge anything. She never flies the drone because she couldn't have, because the app was on Hunter's phone, not hers. And so she had no ability to fly that drone. So that didn't happen either. That was her imagining. What really happened is that Hunter goes away to start her new life. She needs Becky to believe that she's dead so Becky can tell everyone. Yep. And then Hunter just sends in an anonymous tip to the 911. And that's why the ambulance comes. We don't see exactly how Becky gets down. It's just 911 comes and they help her down. It's entirely
that was entirely intentional. It wasn't that scene was too expensive to shoot and we had to cut straight to the bottom, was it? These are great theories. These are brilliant. So
that's basically the whole theory. And then someone must have called Becky's dad, and that's why he shows up then. Yep. And then there's a tarp on the ground. Yeah. I don't believe that's covering Hunter's body. Mm-hmm. We saw that there were like dead animals, dead coyotes around. They just covered that up because Becky's covered up with dead animals. It's maybe Parker the dog, that came back and tried to search for that shoe, and then it died. Yeah, that's what that is. Yeah, absolutely. That's great. That's a wild theory. I have to say. That's It's born from people like me who just love Hunter, and we're like, Hunter's so awesome. She's such a badass. She could not have died.
Yeah. No, I also I share a similar love with Hunter, and I think she I think there's all kinds of possibilities. Never say never, because there's all kinds of ways that we go. But
what do you think of my crazy theory?
There's pretty good evidence that Hunter is capable of pretty stupid and unkind things based on her actions throughout the movie. Her having an affair with her best friend's husband and doing all these crazy, stupid things that she does as part of her day-to-day life. You have raised enough evidence to cast concern and doubt on the circumstances surrounding Dan's death. It's possible that there was a ladder right under the radar dish.
Well, we can't trust anything after that point in the movie. She's hallucinating Hunter. And the fact that she thinks she flew the drone when she clearly did not. None of that could have happened. She couldn't have charged it. She couldn't have used it. Yeah.
Everything that she observes is in doubt. Everything that you have posited, I can't deny reliably. So I can't say that this didn't happen.
No, it's fun, this though, isn't it? It's like the thing is, when you have the unreliable narrator, you can kind of insert, whatever it is believed, right? Like it's up to the audience to derive what they believe, and there's things in there that we, there are things kind of we leave sometimes just and just either try and get away with or think, that might throw people into thinking this and that, and it's kind of fun. But that's a pretty wild theory.
It's a bit of a stretch.
What?
But I can't disprove it, which is my favorite kind of theory. So there you go. Confirmed.
Wow.
100%
So
true.
If you're fans of Hunter, as I was, I think this is the theory for you. Music for this episode was provided by Christine.
Yeah, just want to say I really liked Fall. If you haven't seen it, go see it. If you haven't seen it, find it, watch it. It's a really fun movie. I mean, if you enjoy survival horror type of movies, I really liked it. Yeah, give it some love. Thanks everybody for listening.
And remember, the popcorn isn't real.